Hey, it's Bill, and you're tuned into 3 Questions and a Song, episode number 37. With me live from Helsinki, Finland, is Tom Tikka. What's up, Tom?
Not much. Past midnight. Good to be on the show, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little after 5 here, a little after midnight there. You know.
Yeah. It's a bit of distance between us. Yeah.
So this show is easily explained. It's 3 questions and a song, and that's pretty much what it is.
I'm still wondering. You know, it's weird because Michael sent me the info over and said 3 questions. I'm like, well, what is he going to ask me? It's about the songs, or is he going? You know.
So it depends on the kind of mood I'm in. I usually ask some off the wall questions.
All right, I love those, man. You know, just keep them coming.
So the first one you actually inspired off the air when you were talking about going back in time. So my question is, if you could go back in time to any year, what band would you go back to follow around for a year to learn from?
The Beatles. Simply because they're incredible. The Beach Boys would be a contender, but without Brian Wilson on the road with them, and I'm not a great fan of live music to begin with, but I thought the Beatles they were just amazing. Even the live recordings that you hear are just incredible. Paul McCartney doing "She's a Woman," for example, live at the Hollywood Bowl. It's fantastic. A lot of the, you know, I told you that I have roughly 2,000 CDs downstairs. I think I have no live albums, none whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's.
I've heard live music, but it's not my cup of tea. There's a few exceptions. I do like the Stones, that first live album. No, I wasn't the first, but the second from '69, and Get Eerie Eyes Out. I thought it was a good record. I like the studio versions a lot better, but in as much as live albums are concerned, that's a good one. I do like the Beatles Hollywood Bowl thing, and there might be a couple other ones that I listen to, but I much prefer the studio work, you know.
And of course, my phone is ringing now.
No,
can you hear it?
Get it?
No, I'm ignoring
I'm
it.
Not going anywhere, man. You know?
We'll wait for it to stop ringing though, and then I'll edit it out. For those of you that are watching live, if you have a question for Tom, you could pop it in the comments. He and I will both see it. We'll throw that out there while my phone is ringing.
Is it the live comments thing here? Yeah. Okay. So it'll come there.
Yeah. Sometimes they comment. Sometimes they just hang out. Okay. It looks like it might be done ringing. That's another reason why I usually do this later, because then the phone doesn't ring as often, and my kids are wound down for the evening.
Oh yeah, it's a big thing. Yeah. But I was doing an interview a couple of months ago, and my 5-year-old came into the room. You know, obviously sleeping now, but this was earlier in the evening, and it wasn't live, and we didn't have video. But I mean, he had just been in the bath, and he came to get me, stark naked, hopped on my lap, you know, and I'm talking to somebody. I'm in the middle of explaining about the Impersonators and whatever. And my son comes on. It's like, "Hey, Daddy, is the mic on?" You know, and I'm like, "Yeah, it is."
Yep.
All right, it hasn't happened a lot. It's just that one time, but nevertheless.
Since I'm going to cut it anyway, when I first started doing I have 2 podcasts. I have another one that's called A Pennsylvania Rock Show, which is actually how I met Michael. And on that one, the bands used to come and play live in my living room, in the room I'm sitting in right now.
Yeah. Cool.
And we had a dog at the time, and he would come up and he would sit at the guitarist's feet all the time. And then he would listen for a little while, and then he would press the pedals. You're like, "Bear, quit it."
Yeah. Hey, but I mean, changing sounds, right?
That's right. All right. So question 2 for you. I'll give you. Do you want another oddball one, or do you want a music related one? I mean, they're
No,
all
maybe
music
you can
related.
do, well, yeah, you can do a few oddball ones. I mean, it's just because I said I love them. I mean, because certain things, obviously, with even before the Impersonators, I was in music, and so I've been doing this for a long time. And so I love. I mean, it's not that I don't like answering questions. I do, but certain ones you always get.
You get over and over.
But for example, the time travel one, nobody's ever asked me, and so I love those.
Well, let's see what else I can come up with.
No pressure, right?
I know.
No, any
See,
questions?
now I feel like I have a file that I put my questions in when I think up, but I don't have it open. Let's see. I asked that one a lot lately. So this one is really open-ended, and it's not really an oddball question, but it could be depending on how you answer it. So I'm gonna give you 3 questions myself, and then I'll let you answer Matt's question. So you get a bonus question. I've been doing that a lot lately.
Okay, cool.
And I guess it kind of also depends on. I feel like from reading over your bio and from what you told me earlier that you probably aren't a fan of playing live music out all that often.
Not all that often. No, I do that every once in a while. And when I play live, whether it's with a band or just me and an acoustic guitar, I do enjoy it a lot. Okay. I do. And whenever
because that's important for the question.
All right. Okay, cool. All right. So I probably let you ask the question. Right.
All right. So if you were able to go out and headline a tour where you're the band that everyone wants to come and see, what bands would you want to open for you?
Wow. Okay, that's open for me. Can I change that a little bit? I'd like to play with the Stones. I'd like to play with Paul McCartney. Simply because I think in terms of the Beatles and all that, I think McCartney's a genius. I think on so many levels, I just like to be on stage with him and play my own stuff, play some of his stuff, and just learn from him. I think just from the way he plays bass to his compositions, everything, the way he arranges stuff, I love it. The Stones, just because I think the Stones, in terms of the music, I think that they're probably one of the loosest groups out there. It's kind of strange. I think I just like to be part of that. There's so many great songs. Once again, I think Keith Richards wrote between 65 and 73. He wrote some kick-ass melodies, man. Incredible tunes. Like to play those. I mean, see him play the guitar. He's one of the best guitarists. I depends on what you're looking for. I look for power. I look for originality and how he's playing the chords and stuff. He's fantastic.
So I don't know if you noticed I started laughing when you asked if you could change the question, because you changed it into a question that I actually ask.
Yeah, because a lot of the bands that I want to play with, I'd be basically opening for them, not the other way around, because they're like, it's weird. I mean, there's a couple of I do listen to indie music a bit, but the folks that I actually emulate, they're huge in terms of popularity, and so there's others. I'd like to play with Roger McQueen of the Byrds. Gene Clark's dead. I'd really like to play with him. A lot of the guys are dead. That John Lennon would be incredible. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't do better than that. I don't know, the Go-Betweens, the River Detectives. There's so many. Some of them are sort of marginal artists. I know all the Rolling Stones, the Beatles songs by heart, And when I say by heart, every freaking nuance. I don't listen to them anymore. So nowadays I listen to sort of lesser known artists like Rialto, the River Detectives, and then these are small British things that never really took off the way they should have or the way they would have deserved. They didn't get the recognition. Still love their stuff though, have their CDs. But yeah, if I had to choose one, it'd probably be Paul McCartney.
Usually, I wish I would have known that's the direction I was going to go, because I would ask. Usually, I say, "Hey, recently you see that Dave Grohl will bring somebody up from the crowd and to play with the Foo Fighters. Who would be your Dave Grohl?" And then you could tell me who you want to play with, which would have played perfectly with that answer.
I mean, he's not bad either. It's just that with McCartney, you get this sort of incredible. There's no limits to what he can do. Yeah. You have anything from take everything from Helter Skelter through Yesterday and to his solo stuff, Wing stuff. It just basically, I don't know. It's like an encyclopedia of modern music. In a way, it's all there, really.
Let's see. I'll ask you a third question now, since I said I was going to give you a bonus question. I guarantee you've never been asked this.
Okay. Sounds
I want you to think of your favorite album of all time that you can listen to from front to end without skipping a song. And you like it so much that you'd be willing to forget ever hearing it so you could hear it again for the first time. So which album is that album for you?
Revolver by the Beatles. That's an easy answer. I think a lot of people, at least when I was growing up, people chose Sgt. Pepper over that. And then they've changed a bit over the years, but I always thought Revolver is by far the Beatles' best work. Abbey Road is a close second, or maybe it's basically, maybe they're equal.
Like 1A, 1B.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But that would probably be simply because the guitar sounds, man. I mean, She Said, for example, it's just an incredible album. You get, I think Tomorrow Never Knows is there. You start getting Paul McCartney's vaudeville sort of stuff and the classic music influenced things like Eleanor Rigby, but then you still have, I think John Lennon wrote sort of the last early Beatles flavored pop tunes for that album, like And Your Bird Can Sing is probably last I Feel Fine-ish type of thing, but you have that influence there. It's looking back and it's looking forward, and I think it's got the best of the both worlds, really. And it's really the way it's recorded, the way the way the Beatles play, sing, it's perfect. There, if you listen to Sgt. Pepper, there are mistakes. No mix is gonna take care of that unless you start using auto tune a bit here and there. Mm-hmm. With Revolver, you don't really get those. How they did it, I have no idea.
Hey, so let's talk about the Impersonators now. We're halfway in. Let's talk about the
right. Yeah, so, a few more words about Brian Wilson, man. Yeah.
So the song that Michael sent me is Cloud 9. You could either tell me a story about the recording or how you came up with the lyrics, or just give us a little bit of insight into the song itself.
Well, I mean, it was born. First off, I think Cloud 9 came about. I first had the melody because, for a decade or so, I wrote songs for a band called Carmen Gray, and my brother and I wrote all the Carmen Gray songs. And when I started the Impersonators after Carmen Gray, because Carmen Gray recorded for large recording companies like Sony, BMG. And so we created a certain sound. It was rather commercial, but we created a sound for Carmen Gray. And I wanted to stay away from that because I wanted the new band to have a new identity, original identity that just belonged to the Impersonators. But my son, because I hadn't listened to Carmen Gray for rather a long time, my son, who's now 16 and plays a bit of guitar, got the old albums out and listened to them. And he said that, look, I love the new stuff you're doing, but the Carmen Gray things, those are ear grinders. That why don't you write one of those? Just sort of, if not for anyone else, and for me. And I thought, well, it's been a while. And if somebody is allowed to write a Carmen Gray tune, I'm pretty sure, it's me, right?
Yes.
And so I sat down and I thought that, I sort of pictured that if the old band was back together and I had to show up at the rehearsal pad with a new song, what kind of song would it be? And I wrote the melody for Cloud 9 real fast. It must have taken me no more than 20 minutes. It was there. Boom. Got it. And but then there was a problem with the lyrics, because obviously in the Impersonators I collaborate with Antti Autio, and he's the lyricist. And he sent me this poem about a couple growing old together, just like a relationship where everything is dandy, right? Just great. And it was a beautiful poem, and that's what you have in the verses of the song. And this sort of about trusting the other, and of course, I mean, I think when you're young, it's very easy to write love songs like, that you're so wonderful and what have you. But something happens to you when you get a bit older. You're not as trusting of love, and maybe you're not the, you don't want to be the spokesperson for eternal love, Hollywood love or whatever. Not that it doesn't exist. Before anybody puts in a comment or shoots me or whatever, it does exist, but it's one of the rarest things. And so here I was with this beautiful poem, and it was missing the words for the chorus. And I don't know, I tried many different things, but it just seemed to demand that sort of eternal love, beautiful, perfect touch that I just somehow couldn't bring into the lyric. But around about this time, I was also going to see. I was seeing a shrink to trying to, because in Finland, it's something you don't really do. It's like if you can't deal with your own problems, then you're not a man. And so, and my dad was weird about it, and so I still have problems saying, I was seeing shrink. But yeah, and it was actually really, really good. It helped me out a lot. And these were difficult sessions, I think. And so at the end of one session, I got this realization that perhaps one of the reasons why I've always been a bit unhappy in relationships, it's because I've put myself always in the position of a designated driver. The guy who just, if somebody's not doing well, I'm the guy who says, oh, you don't want to eat this food, let's order something else. As or with rock bands, it's like, you don't want to play this tune, well, how about this one? And so somebody who always places other people's happiness basically before their own. And while that can carry you through decades, at some point, I think you hit a brick wall where you come to the realization that, damn it, man, it's like I've made tons of people happy over the years, but I'm feeling miserable, right? And so after that session, on my way, when I was driving home, I realized that that's what the chorus should be about. It should be about me basically telling the other person in the relationship that, look, whatever the problem is, I'll figure it out for you, And that's how the lyrics came about for the chorus, and that's how I was able to finish the song.
Hold on a second. Hey.
Yeah.
Shh. No, you're not.
Dude, like I said, I've had that happen to me, man. It doesn't matter.
Well, she walked in and I gave her the shush sign. She looked right at me and she kept talking anyway.
No, I mean, that's kids for you. That's kids for you.
All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a moment and listen to the Impersonator song Cloud 9, which you just heard an actual very good description of how it came about. That was awesome. And for those of you that are tuned in live right now, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait until the episode is released, which will be on the 15th at 6 a.m. So until then, you can't hear it. So now we're going to come back in as if we heard it.
All right.
Okay. Hey, that was Cloud 9 by the Impersonators. With me right now is Tom Ticka from the Impersonators.
How you doing? Back again, man.
So last episode, Matt Madigan was on from the band Scytherism. I finally said it right. And he had a question for you, and I'm going to go ahead and let him ask it. But just to give a quick summary for anyone who's listening, he asked who they are impersonating, and a little bit about the history of and not history, but the making of what was the album name again? I'm sorry.
The Sad Cafe EP.
Sad Cafe, that's it. Right. So okay, so you go ahead and answer, and then we'll edit him in asking later.
All right. Well, the question about who we are impersonating is actually it's tied to the name. When Antti and I started the group, we had the duo, we had different names, sort of lame names that I can't even remember now. I remember one, but it was pretty bad. I'm not going to tell you what that was. But yeah, I mean, the idea was simple in the beginning. It was going to be a group of 2 songwriters rather than a group of 4 or 5 musicians. And Antti would write the lyrics, I would write the melody, and then I would play all the instruments, record the tracks like that. And so when I was playing some of the earliest recordings to one of my friends, and I told her what the name of the group would be, she said that why not just call it the Impersonators? And I'm like, yeah, but okay, but for what reason? And she said that, well, it's because you're impersonating all the members of a rock band. You're just like a make-believe rock band. You're the drummer. First you impersonate the drummer, then the bass player, then the guitar player, and whatever. And I'm thinking, man, that's actually pretty cool. And that's how we became the Impersonators. And so that's the story behind the name, and also the logic behind the name. And so idea is that I'm impersonating the non-existent members of a rock band. Cool. And yeah, and the Sad Cafe EP, all the songs have a story behind them. The story of the Sad Cafe song itself is actually rather interesting. I was in London, England for a few weeks, and I went to this cafe, which I can't remember the name of. I guess we can't, but it was one of those moments when you've been walking around forever and you really need a bathroom, and the only cafe that's available right now, because you've been looking for, I mean, you've all been there, you've been looking for basically a cafe for a long time, and then you go in and you have to get a cup of coffee. I needed a cup of coffee anyway.
But you feel obligated to buy something.
Right, obligated to buy something, right? So as not to cause problems, right? And so did my business, came back for the cup of coffee, and this was coffee that was bad. Okay, and the whole, if I can't to describe the premises, I mean, it wasn't much. Perhaps better than that I don't remember the name. But the only way to describe the coffee I was having was that it really didn't require taste buds. You know, it would have been better if some of the mouth water that the dentist gives you after root canal or whatever, it just takes the taste. You can't taste anything for a couple hours, right? Could have used one of those, But as I was so here's the story. As I was sitting down drinking the coffee, there was in the neighboring table, there was a couple having a fight, and it's weird. I mean, it's kind of like they're really going at it, and all of a sudden the guy gets up, takes off his ring, slams it on the table, and says, "We're done."
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's like everybody, there weren't a lot of people, but everybody freezes, right? I just walked out. She stayed there crying, and me being there, I sort of felt obligated to wander over and say that, look, it's awful. And I don't know what's happened. Maybe you deserved it, maybe you didn't, but that's not, it was the most brutal way of breaking off a marriage I've ever seen. And so I stayed with her for a bit. We chatted, and having gone through a divorce myself in the past, as I was listening to her, though, she was looking around the place, and she said that, and to do it in such a sad cafe, but that, and then she said, that's what our marriage was like. It was like this damn sad cafe, right? And as I'm listening to her, I'm starting to think that's, it's awful, but that's a great title for a rock song, in the sense that, and to compare it to a marriage, that it's not an actual place, that it's a metaphor. The sad cafe used as a metaphor for a cafe marriage that you need to get out of. And so basically that's the story behind the song, and the story behind the EP is a bit more boring. We had recorded 4 tracks before that, released them as singles, and the label wanted us to put all of that out as one EP, as to get reviews. And it's whoever's a musician and is listening, they know the trade. That's, you got to have a sort of a larger, not necessarily an album, but an EP to actually, for somebody to take the time to listen to it and review it, which is understandable. But so that's what we were going for. But the story behind the song is that's and I wrote the as soon as I got to the hotel, I wrote the lyrics and of the chorus. And once again, then Antti came up with the rest. And so
now, does she know that the song exists?
No, probably doesn't. I mean, come to think of it, we never introduced. I mean, I didn't introduce myself to her. Neither did she. I mean, it was sort of a, one of those moments where you kind of cautious of saying, by the way, I'm Tom Tika of the Impersonators, because then somebody's gotten dumped. And so the next thing that she thinks is coming out of your mouth, and how about if I take you out to dinner, and so I really didn't want to, it just didn't seem somehow right. But I mean, yeah, would have been, if we had introduced ourselves, if I had found her then based on that on Facebook, I definitely would have sent her the link. But yeah, that's how the song came about, and that's what you have in the lyrics.
Cool. What I need from you now is, can you tell the listeners where they can track the Impersonators down online?
Well, I mean, I don't know if that little box is going to be visible to folks watching.
It is. It is.
Right. So the best way to find out more about us is to go to impersonatorsmusic.com. I think that there are links to interviews. Lately, I've been actually doing so many interviews that the current ones aren't there, and we'd have to be updating the web pages all the time, which is a poor excuse, by the way. But but I mean, the story behind the group and the story of everything and who I am, they don't really change from year to year. And so the ones that are out there are good ones. And as far as I'm concerned, biased opinion, of course, but you'll find links to the music. It's all there.
Okay. And the last thing I need from you is a question for the band Arsenic, who is
Arsenic,
the next episode.
Yeah, I actually wrote down. I was actually, as I was listening to the music, one of the things that I'm always interested in is I'd like to know what their influences are as far as they're concerned. I've listened to such a huge amount of music that to me it's clear, very clear. But but I'm definitely, I'd be interested in
and hearing if it matches up.
Yeah, right. And also another thing that's I know you said one question, but another thing is the logo. Once again, what influenced that? I can see it being in my mind. I see a couple of things going on there, but once again, I'd like to hear their verse. It's a pretty cool logo. It to me, it's a composite, but in terms of if they agree with me or if I'm right at all, I'd be interested in finding out.
So they actually, it's kind of neat that they're the ones who come after you, because you are in.
We're in the area.
Yeah, there's a bug there.
Right.
You are not anywhere near me, but your manager lives a couple miles from me.
Right. Yeah. True.
And Arsenic, if I remember correctly, they are signed to DI Records, which is out of Pittsburgh, which is about 40 miles from here. And I want to say they're in Europe. I feel like Poland, but I don't remember for sure.
It was Poland. Yeah. Check. Yeah.
So you guys are on the other side of the pond, but you're still close to the little area enough. I'm in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a boat ride. Close by anyway.
But I want to thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. This was great. Yeah.
And hopefully the questions were interesting enough for you.
They were. I enjoyed this quite a bit. Yeah, indeed. I did. Yeah.
All right. So those of you that are listening, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of who's coming up next. Obviously on August 1st, we have Arsenic. On the 15th, we have Royal Honey. On the 1st of September will be Eric Winger. On the 15th is the Spider Accomplice. So make sure you check us out on those dates. And if you're looking for something to listen to in between those dates, don't forget that the Pennsylvania Rock Show releases an episode every Friday. You can check that out. You can find them both by going to buildthescene.com. Thanks, Tom. And
thank you.
We're going to let John Lane take us out like he has been recently into the wild wonders.